I've been doing my Turn Autism Around podcast for 3.5 years. We just surpassed 1 million audio downloads, and we just released podcast number 200. So today we are celebrating, and we are giving you a glimpse of maybe something you haven't known about me before with this special interview. Hi, I'm Dr. Mary Barbera, autism mom, behavior analyst, and best-selling author. Each week, I provide you with some of my ideas about turning things around. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do that now. So today we are sharing a short excerpt from podcast 200, where we are celebrating this really pivotal milestone. And hope you like what you hear, and maybe it's a different story than you've heard before.
And so I wanted to ask you, because, for those who are listening, it can be incredibly overwhelming, and it can bring up a lot of emotions, to consider that your child could have autism, or people are in the process of getting a diagnosis. So, share with us, like, you were obviously very overwhelmed when you got that diagnosis, and I've heard your podcast on the way back, you were in tears, and yeah, I can totally relate to that. So how do you flip the script? Like, how did you go from becoming an overwhelmed parent to now becoming a board certified behavior analyst, a best-selling author on the topic of autism? You're a course creator. You're also a podcaster as well. And like you say, and I really believe it, you're so genuine. You're on a mission to change people's lives, and I think that's so noble. And I'm so thankful that what you're doing is not, I don't believe it's just a business. I believe it's a service. It's a service for those who are struggling in this area, knowing how to grapple with it. So, I'm just very, very thankful for what you're doing. So, tell us your story. Like, how do you go from someone very overwhelmed to someone who became very positive, changing your son's life, now changing countless lives all around the world?
Yeah. So once Lucas was diagnosed, I did have a lot of things going for me. I was a registered nurse. I had a master's degree. I got a master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania in nursing administration by the time I was 25 years of age. And so I always worked in the neuro field. Worked with head injury patients and spinal cord injury patients and patients with brain tumors and older people who had strokes. So I knew, like, right away, I help people talk again. I help people walk. They had incontinence, so I dealt with potty training and just all these things. And then I also was a manager. So I managed 24/7 staff, and I managed hiring and firing and being nice to new people so they wouldn't quit. And I also was married to a physician, and we had not only the resources, not really the financial resources weren't as important as knowing how to write emails, keeping organized, being like, okay, ABA is the most proven treatment for kids with autism. Okay, where do I have to get in line? Who do I have to call? Those are the kind of skills, those advocacy skills, that made all the difference. Because in our state, the state of Pennsylvania, even back in 1999, when most people were putting a mortgage on their house to pay for ABA therapy, some other parent had come before me, and he had figured out a loophole in the whole medical assistance system within Pennsylvania. And so I was able to get in line for Lucas to get medical assistance regardless of parent income, which I was just like, somebody said, I'm like, how do I get ABA? Well, you got to get Lucas on medical assistance. I don't want Lucas on medical assistance. I have insurance. Well, your insurance isn't going to pay for anything. So you got to get him on so it was that kind of, okay, I'll go in that line, and
Yeah.
going down to the medical assistance department. So I became such an advocate, because I was like, if this is the system, you got to go down to the Department of Medical Assistance, whatever that is. You have to go sit, wait, produce all your financial income, go through all this. And I have a car. I had a computer. I had internet access back in 1999. You know, I became such an advocate. I was the founding president of the Autism Society in my county. I was like, I am fighting not just for Lucas, but for the single mom, English as a second language, no car, no computer. Like, if this is the struggle, then I am all about advocacy for all kids. And so right away, I became really, like, what line do I have to stand in? Who would I, and right away, I ended up in a due process case, which is like educational court, which I was like, what? Because Lucas had gone to typical preschool, and what they were recommending once he turned 3 and was diagnosed with moderate to severe autism was not what I had in mind. And I was like, no, he's not going there. And so I ended up in due process, and which was a whole nother like can of worms, a whole nother escapade. And it was actually my first lawyer who had an adult son with autism, and he took my case pro bono, which means for free, assuming I was going to win the case, which nobody ever really wins a due process case. You could just keep appealing, and at some point you settle, but that's another story. So when I was up on the stand for 5 hours and I got down, he said, you should become a behavior analyst. I'm like, what's that? And he said, well, you need a master's degree. You already have a master's degree. You need to, it's not online. It was a distance learning program. So literally it was through Penn State. I got a box of VHS tapes and a box of binders, and I could do it at home. And it wasn't back then. This happened. I studied in 2002. I got a postmaster's certificate from Penn State, and took my boards in 2003. And so I've been a BCBA since. But it was my first lawyer, which, like, if I wouldn't have ended up there, I wouldn't have known about that. And then in terms of, author, then it was just like, oh my gosh, I need to, I became a BCBA, started working through a statewide grant through the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And then I also was mad about pediatricians and their lack of knowing the signs of autism. So I got involved with a first signs grant, went around the state educating physicians on early signs of autism, which led me into like seeing parents and trying to help them. And so finally it was like one woman who was also a nurse had a little son with early signs of autism. He was waiting for a diagnosis. And she came over to my house in exchange for some videos I needed. And I helped her, and she's like, you have to help me. What can I do? And I realized that all the books I had used were out of date, seriously out of date. And a lot of the information was in my head. And that's when I decided to write my first book, The Verbal Behavior Approach, which I didn't think was going to be a big deal, but it was a big deal, and it still is a big deal. It's selling better than ever, and it's in 17 languages, which put me on the map to travel around the world, speaking on autism, and then eventually found my way into the online world and what I do now. I hope you enjoyed that short excerpt from podcast 200. If you want to listen to the whole episode, go to marybarbera.com/200. And if you would like more information about joining our online course and community, attend a free workshop and see if it's a good fit for you. And if you can, share this video with somebody who might benefit, leave a comment, and I'll see you right here next time.